And so folks who've been to Alaska, have you been to Fairbanks? You know where Fairbanks is in the state? You know, it's the kind of thing that Alaska is its own place. And I know enough about New York that don't you hate it when people think that you live like right in the metro or in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Just go. I was staying with somebody last night, a new friend, where you know, people are just say, well, can I come visit? And then we can go into the city. And she's going, yes, like 5.5 hours. You know, it's people, but you know where you are. But people don't know. They don't look at maps. And Alaska's big. I'll draw a little map of Alaska in a little bit with my bow or on the back here. But I play a fiddle that makes me feel at home in Fairbanks. And I'll tell a little about that. So it's sitting up front. I knew I could get to the right spot when I said Alaska's Fiddling Poet was going to be here tonight. So, fiddle, poem, I got a poem about this. And if you have, there's a brown postcard back there on that table. If you have that, there's a card that has, I use it as my business card. It's a poem, it has my website, it has some of my schedule. The poem is called Old Time Fiddle Lesson. So, Alaskan Fiddling Poet, I better do a poem. To learn, lock yourself in your fiddle in a room all winter. Practice till you play with a twisty, heartfelt, rhythmic punch that approaches trance. Fiddling is not technical repetition anyone can master. It's a sound you make once you know in the blood and clog your fingers, while that old devil music dances inside the box. Another one about this kind of music, especially if we have some younger ones just coming in. Poem.
A little louder.
Okay, a little bit louder? Yeah. So this is a poem about, who here has heard this kind of music much? I guess there's isn't there like a fiddling Hall of Fame somewhere around here? Was it, where's that? In like Osceola, is that?
Yes.
How far is that from here?
40 miles.
40 miles. So this is, I think, some of the music that people play there. So this poem is called Old Time String Band Jam. When three fiddlers sit with a banjo player and guitar, some chairs tight and a close little ring, no matter what you've been taught, no matter your ear, know when musicians bob and sway and shake like a flood of sound dammed in the seat. Listen well. You'll hear moonshine and mountain joined at the peak, crooked creek crashing its banks, quick twist of highlight catching brush, lovely old rattler slithering beneath. So this is music from the Appalachians, sound from the mountains. So you're going to get Alaska. See, I'll do a quick map. That this morning, I was in Henderson. Yesterday I was in Rochester. So I went from Henderson, spent some time in Watertown, came up to DePaulo via Clayton. So I went up and then back. But I grew up, I'm going to get my life story. I grew up down here outside Philadelphia. Music from the mountains down here. West Virginia, North Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky. Seattle's here, Alaska's up here. I mentioned Fairbanks. Fairbanks is way up here. It's in the interior of the state, north of the Alaska Range. I officially live in Anchorage now. I started out in Fairbanks. Spent time in Anchorage, and now it's nicknamed as Los Anchorage. The Los Angeles of Alaska. People say it's a half hour from Alaska. If you've been to Anchorage, it could be like being in Watertown. I don't know as far as some of the, when I came up on, well, I was on 3, I think, coming into town, it could be like Anchorage. We have Southeast Alaska down here. There's Ketchikan, there's Juneau, our capital. Juneau, if you did that on your trip, it's not like Albany. It's mountains and water. There's no road in. You can only get there by boat or plane. I used to live, and I'll talk about it, here in Nome. Nome is on the Bering Sea coast. Here is Russia. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And if you go up here, you're up in Barrow. So that's on the Arctic Ocean. But I remember, I think I called this like from Jefferson County to Juneau. Is that right? Yeah, so I'll have to do something about Juneau especially. But anyway, there's that. That gets us started. And let's see. I'm going to play another fiddle tune. I'm going to do the long poem. You live here. Who here spent some time camping? I bet there's going to be some hand raised. Who has spent time living either camping or in a house without running water? This poem, this fiddle tune and poem that I'm going to do is for you. And also, who believes in miracles? Anybody? This is going to be, you're going to hear me sing a little bit. And how to say, my background when I was in Philadelphia, when I was in elementary school, there was a choir. They put me in the speaking choir. You know what that means? It means I don't sing. When I started playing fiddle, I started playing fiddle till my mid-20s in North Carolina. I was living down here. And anybody go out for dinner on one of their birthdays? People sing happy birthday. I was banned from singing happy birthday. So you're going to hear me sing. You're going to hear a poem for everybody who is washing dishes without running water. This tune is called Greasy Coat. I'm going to do it. There's only a couple little young ones. How old are you all? 5?
3.
You're 3?
I'm 7.
Well, I'm going to do this is a fiddle tune called Greasy Coat that's from West Virginia. I'll do the traditional words, and it's on one of my kids' CD. I'll do the kids' words. But you hear the traditional words, and you'll hear why I'm going to change it for the kids. But they'll be okay, I think. I don't drink and I don't smoke and I don't wear no greasy coat. The kids' version is, I don't wink and I don't joke and I don't pet no billy goat. imagine that still going on, or imagine me in a different kind of show where I have a banjo player playing with me, as I often do. And as the banjo player is still playing, I go into this bag, and I go into a book, because this poem is long, I don't have it memorized like the other ones. And the poem I wrote more than 25 years ago. It's called Washing Dishes on My 33rd Birthday. 4 years now in my Alaska cabin without running water. I do dishes lifting a 5-gallon jug chest high, tilting the spigot so water dumps in the big pot on top of the oven. If you're lowering the jug, I light a back burner, play fiddle, await steam, start on a Sunday night ritual. Today, I'm 33. No sink, I slowly raise the pot of hot water, empty half in a large bowl I squirted with soap. Set pot beside bowl so they rest on front burners, close as man and wife. Then I soak glasses in suds, sponge rims, sides, bottoms, dip insides in scalding pot water, and set on the rack to dry. Next, plastic yogurt containers, plates, soup bowls, bread pans, small pots, bigger bowls, chopsticks, silverware. System I stick to. I'm obsessed with order. When visiting, I'll wash dishes my way. First glass, plastic, clay, then steel, iron, wood, silver. Pleased to inflict my weekly routine on hosts, especially those with plumbing. Though I can enjoy hot water faucets, deep wide sinks, grease-sucking drain pipes, I don't want to live like that. Having turned bowls up over bowls, lean plates against plates, laid knobs on a towel, I sponge the large bowl, sponge-like bowl, dump grime and bubbles in a bucket, rinse, set upside down on top of the rack. Then I wash the big pot and slide over the bowl so rims kiss, sides hug, and bottoms fit. As they drip, I lift the wastewater bucket and carry it outside across the driveway. Crunchy snow, lit stars, 3/4 moon illuminating bushes and birch trees. The below zero October air stings fingers and throat. I grip the bucket bottom and heave, water cracked snow with a splash, steam rising from the hole like a geyser. Feet numb, hands clenched in sweater sleeves, I follow vapor. Watch the last wisp disappear in moonlight, bright stars flickering. Then I shut my eyes, wish, blow so hard I wince, an icy stab to the chest. Opening my eyes, my steaming cloud of breath forms a skull. I hurry indoors, drop the bucket by the oven, shake and rub my hands to thaw them, and once they're warm, I take my fiddle. Play one of those mournful, crooked West Virginia tunes. Slide my fingers up the neck. I stare at the dish rack. The week stacked in perfect balance. My 33rd birthday. It can't last. The banjo player was still playing, and I'd go back and join it, but I'd also mention when I was doing those dishes without running water, I usually have this was before CDs, I'd have the radio on, or I'd be listening to a cassette, or even I guess I didn't have my turntable, but I'd be listening to this kind of music, and I'd take my fiddle, and this is one of the tunes I'd be learning there, was Greasy Coater, just working on playing. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't wear no greasy coat. That's a too much to do. So I played Old Joe Clark, I played this one Greasy Coat. I have this other thing I do that I've made up tunes. I'm going to play something I made up called the Fairbanks Cabin Waltz. And I like playing it on the mandolin. And I got a poem about my Fairbanks cabin that had no running water, so I'll play the waltz through and then I'll do the poem. Poem about that Fairbanks cabin goes like this. My father, lifelong Philadelphian visiting Alaska, could only see I drove an old dented van and lived in a small, mean, low-rent dwelling with shabby plywood exterior, peeling front door that couldn't lock, drab unmatched furniture, fade carpet, ladder leading up to God only knew. House without plumbing where I hauled water from a spring 10 miles away. Sat daily to contemplate digestion in an outhouse with styrofoam seat. Father, to have missed the Arctic sky that thrills, the utter privacy and simplicity that comfort, the blueberry bushes that feed, the heater that warms, a loft with desk, typewriter, and mattress that realizes my dreams. Father, that you traveled 5,000 miles and missed my being saddens me. I only journey further. What once had been is elsewhere. Fairbanks Cabin Waltz, and I got another one that I made up, in Juneau, our capital. And let's see, you play some guitar, you play piano. Do you play this kind of music on guitar, son?
My daughter's Irish step dance.
Oh,
we get
nice.
amazing fiddlers sometimes at the fashions
I bet.
competitions.
I bet.
I love acoustic music
Yeah.
any kind.
Well, I can tell you that it's not too late to learn. If I can play, anybody can play. Once again, I started in my 20s, and I can also say that even if I'm having a really bad day, and other people who play who have really bad days, you play, you're going to be happy and happier no matter what. And I say that to mention that there's a guy in Juneau, who used to live in Fairbanks, who plays the guitar. I don't have a guitar here. Plays the banjo, plays the stand-up bass. He calls square dances. Happy guy. He also had a fiddle, had a mandolin. His day job, he teaches to this day, he teaches 1st and 2nd grade. He better be happy. And it goes back almost 18 years now. I saw him the day after Christmas in the Juneau post office, and he was not looking happy. Glum, sad, all of that and worse. His name's Jack Fontenot. I said, Jack, how you doing? He said, not good. I said, not good? He said, yeah, house burned down. Christmas Eve, while he and his girlfriend were out visiting and eating, they heard sirens. It was for their cabin. And they lost virtually everything. And in his case, he had these really nice instruments. Guitar, banjo, bass, and he had other instruments. And I would think, having spent a little bit of time here, today, there's summer and there's also fall, winter, and spring, and people know people, and if something goes wrong, I bet people here are pretty good for taking care of each other. I mean, I was even looking for this, about this, like the Keith Fest that's going, if something happened to that fella, and it's like, you remember stuff, and that you keep things close. So when Jack had his fire, within a week, people raised money so we had a nice guitar. If you've been to Juneau, it's all water and mountains. It's 30,000 people, but there's not like 10,000. You can't like drive from there to like, from here to Clayton or down to Watertown. It's like, imagine Watertown, and to go from Watertown to Syracuse, you get on a plane or you go on a boat, or to go even to Oswego or anything. You get on, you can't drive anywhere. That's it. It's 30,000, but it's a small 30,000, and it's the capital. There's not a lot of places to live. People found Jack and his girlfriend, now his wife Jen, a place to live. What I did, about 3 weeks later, I was leading a writing workshop, middle of January, just like I was just doing here. And there was a prompt which led into me writing a poem on something I was thinking about, which is what those instruments sounded before they burnt up. Because they had to make a last sound. So I wrote a poem, Burnt Down House, for Jack Fontanella. It goes like this. The night of the cabin fire, amidst the cupboards and kitchenware, closets and clothes, when the flames came picking, I like to think of the two guitars and mandolin, banjo, bass, and fiddle might have done their skins a moment to make the craziest, most raucous caterwauling noise. Enough riotous jabberwock fuel a dozen generations of old-time string bands. Before slipping back into maple, to smoke hot and right, the instrument's last bright Denali festival of sound. Wrote that poem. I didn't write it right there. I wrote a draft and I went through it and made it better. Printed it out. Gave Jack a copy. Not my best friend, but a good friend. So I heard he had that poem. He liked it. He had it on his refrigerator door at the new place. A few months later, I ran into him. We talked. He was doing better, you know. I said, Jack, you know I make up fiddle tunes. If you want, I'll make up a fiddle tune for you called Burnt Down House. And he might have said he was somebody different. Stop right there, fiddling poet. The poem was okay, but I don't need a fiddle tune. I'm done with that burnt down house. But he said, yeah, you can make up a fiddle tune, Burnt Down House. So I asked him the big question with this kind of music. This isn't classical music, this is fiddle tune. So I said, key of A or key of D? What do you want? And he said, key of D. So I made up this tune, and I go everywhere. This is when I'm with the high schoolers and middle schoolers. Elementary schoolers don't get this story. Middle schoolers and high schoolers, all these, you know, how they're so intrigued by fire. They think this song is better than any poem. It's their favorite part of what I do. Burnt Down House for Jack Fontanella. Tune I made up for him. Burnt down house. Burnt down house. Burnt down house. Burnt down house. Like that. I think that's like, I say it's not really a poem, that's a song. They say, that's your best. Let's see, so I got us at least to Juneau there. I was going to say something else about Juneau, but you know, see, I said Anchorage is Los Anchorage. A friend in Ketchikan, you know what, and I didn't think it was true, but she swears it is, and she's from there. But you know what the nickname for Ketchikan is, which is in southeast Alaska? They call it Tijuana, Alaska. First town over the border. And then there's Juneau, and there's other communities in southeast Alaska. Sitka, there's Haines, there's Skagway, there's Petersburg, Wrangell. Anchorage is the big city, half the people in the state. The state is double the size of Texas. I mean, think of Maine to down to Georgia, maybe across to Indiana with 750,000 people. It's like Metro Rochester, with no Syracuse, Buffalo, New York City, Hartford, New Haven, Boston, no Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, no Pittsburgh, no DC, Baltimore, Atlanta, Nashville. It's just Rochester, all that distance. You can do anything. I moved there. I was 29 years old, turning 30. I've been playing fiddle for 4 years, not been able to play fiddle publicly. I've written some short stories, I've never written a poem in my life. 10 years later, I'm Alaska's fiddling poet. I can do anything up there. Fairbanks, up there, where I went to graduate school, your average, it's amazing in the summer, it's light, it's warm. This time of year is amazing. January, average high, -5. So I think of your winter, this winter, that's, you know, I mean, -5 is an average high in January. I remember my first year there, it snowed 3 inches September 21st, and you can have snow, in a late year, you can have it in May. But then the spring comes quick, summer's really nice, and it's wonderful. A lot of people live as I lived, in a cabin with no running water. I was 5 miles from downtown, 5 miles from the college. That's the second biggest city in Alaska. It's about 70,000. Juneau is southeast, where it's not as cold. It's maritime climate, but 100 inches of rain a year. Any day, your percentage is more likely it's going to rain. And Ketchikan down there is 160 inches of rain a year. So it's not that cold, but it is wet. You're going to get wetter no matter what there. So, just a little bit about Alaska. And I'm going to share a poem that's, I don't even know what I'm going to read. I'm just going to pick up something from this book. This book, this is my first one. I'm going to get into this. This is all set in the Nome region. This one has stuff from all over. And I'm going to read something that I'm not even sure what I'm going to get to. And then this book, too, has a bunch of Alaska poems. And I think I actually want to read something from here. Some people were talking about writers, and somebody mentioned, who was it who mentioned the writer Sue Henry? Was that?
Me.
Okay. I may have met her in passing, but there's a fella who I didn't know I was going to read this poem until we were just started talking, but there's a fella who is we don't have a poet laureate in Alaska these days, we have a writer laureate. And this fellow was a writer laureate who has written poems, but he also has written a series of mysteries that may have been, or may still be in this library. A writer, John Straley, he had a little bit of a bump at one time. He was a writer laureate in the state of Alaska. He's written poetry, he's a good writer. But there was a time when he was president, Bill Clinton was reading his books. So he got like some notoriety. But his wife, Jan Straley, they live in Sitka. And he's sometimes been a private investigator to make some money. And you don't make money so much doing the books. But his wife is a whale biologist. And I was able to go on her skiff. This is 20 years ago. But I wrote something from the time on her skiff. And so it's a southeast poem. It's called The Whale Biologist, and it's for Jan and John Straley. Settled in your skiff, warmed by layers, to find whales we cut chilled August sea air, then quickly sped from sunlit to overcast sky. Talking little over the motor's roar, I watched you search, your scan so intent I almost asked, why whales, Jan? And then I knew whales, the giant keys to our past. That day, out far, we spotted spouts, glimpsed telltale flukes. your glee was proof. Male and female, they were at it again. Actually, since the little ones have left, I'm going to share two other poems from this book. These are two poems that I don't ever really share, but I'll share. I get asked about the Northern Lights, and I don't really. I have this one poem. I gotta even find it in here. Fairbanks, 3 a.m. And it's one of those things that you, if you're looking for the Northern Lights, you don't go up there this time of year. It's not going to be dark. So and also in southeast Alaska, which is maybe easier weather, that rain, it's not going to be clear. It's going to be cloudy. You're not going to see Northern Lights. Fairbanks, when I moved there, is kind of one of the places for Northern Lights, but it's a long winter. It helps having a place with no running water because, to go out at 2 in the morning to, use the outhouse or to just go out, you have another chance to see the lights. And what people would do, this was in the mid-'80s that I was in grad school there, people would, we had landlines, we didn't have cell phones, but you had landlines, people would call and say, hey, the lights are out, because I thought it was a myth my first months there because I never saw them. And then once you see them, if you've ever had, and I guess here you can see them, but not often probably. It's not often you see them in Alaska. Well, in Fairbanks you can see them. But anyways, in Fairbanks, 3 a.m. A night erupting with red dancing as if the March dark and cold had mated to birth electricity and create higher color. The meaning of everything, I thought, a subarctic light show, living, freezing, yet boiling to be seen, slated for now. Lucky me, the red whip skated, whirling curtains, tapered leaps, slam dancing pretzels, the ghostly kites, a king-size, sky-wide miracle. God's tongue licking it, I joked to myself. A scarlet tide, maybe, or flying vipers. I felt it in my thighs, the power. Back inside bed, I bit my sweet soft neck, the Aurora, baby. So. And for those counting, that's a sonnet. I wrote a sonnet there with that. I'll read one more. I don't often share. Any climbers in the house here tonight doing climbing? When I'm talking geography with folks, let's see. So, Seattle, we got Ketchikan, Juneau, we got Anchorage, we got Fairbanks, and you have this mountain range, the Alaska range, and the highest mountain in North America, the highest spot. Denali. And if you say Mount McKinley, it'd be like saying your town is Teresa around here. And say that's not right. I mean, it's right, but it's not right. It's Teresa. I heard that, right? That's how you pronounce it. So if you say Mount McKinley, you go, they're not from there. You say Denali. That's what they call it, the Great One. So, so I had this poem I wrote, and this is another exercise that for the people who took the workshop, a guy I knew in Nome climbed Denali and then sent me a journal entry. And I didn't want to throw it out, but why is he sending me this journal entry? Then I realized he was giving me a gift. And I figured I had permission to take his journal entry and do like a sculpting job and just cut out like every word until I had just a little bit left. And I had, let's see, 2, 5, 8, 9, 10, 12. I got down to about 30, 40 words, a whole page. And it goes like this: 15,000 feet Denali, for Jim Lawhon, the guy who sent this to me. Blue ice, chips and skitters. 3 breaths, step, right foot, the axe. His pack would have him backwards, tumbling. He trembles, feels sweat trickle and a clump in his beard. Above God's porch, his summons. Climb, he hears. So he kicks, foot in, the axe. You know, I never share that, but if there's a climbing, maybe I do share it in Colorado, but. I'll play a fiddle tune, then I'm gonna play a tune that I've never played except at the end. It's my favorite track. This is the fiddle tune that I don't know if I'm going to tell the story tonight, but this is the fiddle tune that changed my life. It's why I'm here, why I'm going to be in Tioga County for a few days, why I was just in Livingston County and Avon, and if you look at my cards and all the places I go, everywhere I go it's because of this tune, and I may sing it. I may get back to the story later, but I'm going to get you to the gnome part of the show here. My favorite tune is called "Cluck Old Hen." Cluck, cluck, cluck. Cluck, cluck, cluck. My old hen's a good old hen. She lays eggs for the DePaulville man. Sometimes a one and sometimes a two and sometimes enough for the hold on crew. Cluck, cluck, cluck. And my old hen's a good old hen. Also lays eggs for the DePaulville women. Sometimes a one and sometimes a two and sometimes enough for the hold on crew. Kids left before I got to their part. Cluck, cluck, cluck. Now I'm going to do this. This is kind of fun because I don't usually do it like this, but I do this. This is like my storytelling thing that I can go on for 20 minutes on that with a long story that I might kind of catch the thread again. But this fiddle is, when I started playing in my mid-20s, 30 plus years ago, which was down here outside Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I spent time there. That's where I was living when I started playing. I had a housemate who was a banjo player. I had a banjo in my car. I don't really, never really play banjo, but I can do it for kids. It's this clawhammer style. And he had parties. He was a good banjo player then. And I was the boring housemate. I didn't play. And there was a guy who was going to be a furniture maker. We started to build furniture. This was the fiddle that he was playing and was going to quit playing. He left it after the party to sell. I bought this fiddle for $100, fiddle, bow, and case. And when I started, my housemate said, "Ken, you're scaring the cats. Quit scaring the cats. Okay." I was stubborn. I kept playing. I moved up to Alaska, to learn lock yourself in your fiddle room all winter, etc. But I've always been shy about my playing. I'm here, I can play. I know I can play. I play okay, but from the beginning, I've known people who are really good, like not just the best, but the best of the best. I've been blessed that way. I've known people who are really good. And I'm kind of shy. I go to parties, I go to festivals. I don't have to play because I visit, I talk, I meet people, I pick up gigs that way, I do various things. But when I lived in Nome, it was great for my fiddling. You know why? I was the best for 1,000 miles. I was playing a lot, but I was getting really pretty good. And the thing about this too is that when I lived in Nome, I was a college professor. I taught over telephone. Imagine if, let's allow Watertown to be not Juneau, but shrink it to about 3,500 people. And then it becomes Nome. That's where I was living, 3,500. But to get from Watertown to DePaulville, and there's like 300 people. How many people are here? There's like 1,000 in there in DePaulville. No, not a few hundred, 500. Well, that's kind of like. But imagine going from Watertown to DePaulville. You got to get on a plane, and you get from here to Clayton. Well, it's maybe you go on your snow machine. They call snowmobile snow machines, or you get on a plane again, and to get to. I'll have to start picking on Theresa again. You get there, you get on a plane, or you get Sackets Harbor, get on a plane. Everywhere's a plane. There's no roads. Where there are roads, but there's only 3 roads out of Nome, and they don't connect, and they're only open for a few months a year. So that's where I was living. and I was teaching over the phone to villages. And there was money in the budget, I traveled to villages. These are Inupiat Eskimo villages. There were the furthest away Yupik Eskimo village, Stebbins, they call it Stebbins. And there was on St. Lawrence Island, which is, if that's Nome and that's Russia, St. Lawrence Island is, there's two villages, Savunga and Gamble. Gamble is 40 miles from Siberia. If you follow the story of our former governor, it's one of the three places in the state where you can actually see Russia. And I would travel to these villages to meet my students. These students had to have master's level, doctoral level commitment to take remedial English classes. So I do what I can to help them. And every village has school. And let's see, I guess I can do it right here. That. It's the equivalent of me knocking on the door of the principal's office. I'd show up and say, I'm here to talk to my college student and do a phone class tonight in the village. Can I spend the day in the school doing some writing and doing fiddle with the kids? I do this now, I get paid. Not only do I get paid pretty good money, but even then, the logistics to get somebody out there, it's huge. Here I was just showing up with this fiddle. This is my first fiddle, I got another fiddle there. This is the fiddle that I would take. And every school would just go, yeah, it's part of service, it's part of what I would do. And in Gamble, 3rd and 4th grade teacher said, after I was there, they said the kids had never seen a violin before. So I went from being like the best for 1,000 miles in the middle, I get on one plane ride, and then I'm like making history. I'm doing like a historic thing by bringing a fiddle to a place.
The only.
What's that?
The only.
Yes, this fiddle. So I wrote a poem about this fiddle that I'm going to share. It's my favorite. I talk about my favorite fiddle tune. This is my favorite poem. I used to have it memorized, but I don't do it that much these days. It's called Village Fiddle. Show you. I toted my junker, side seam already cracked, an old cheap box of wood that would take the steep banks of small plains aiming for runways, the bumps and jostles of sleds hooked to snow machines, the ice, the wind, nights in the villages. Higher education missionary around students' homes, where I visited but never fit. To liaisons' offices where the state-issued equipment sometimes worked. To the local high schools and elementaries where I volunteered service. Fiddle closer to my heart than the backpack full of books. Indeed, fiddle closer to my heart than the frozen, broken truth, bloody pump, buried in utter darkness. Quick to unsnap the case, I scratched tunes where no one had played real life old time music to Eskimos and the odd whites in that weathered land. The pied fiddler I might have been, gently placing the beat up instrument in others' hands, giving up the bow. Good for smiles and laughs, random questions and comments. A 3rd grader. It must be like having a dog always making noise. You must never get lonely. A high schooler. Is it hard to learn? One of my college students. Why are you out here? Where is your family? That's what they say. Why are you out here? Where's your family? And if you travel to Alaska, these villages are like the furthest, although there's occasional tourists, very, very occasional. And the tourists who will go out to gamble, you know why they're there? They are the most, I don't want to say masochistic, but the most dedicated birders. So you can see in North America, you can see birds, because you're 40 miles from Russia and you're seeing birds. But that's like the very well-heeled and crazy eco-travelers might go out there. But even going to Nome is far, and then take that next ride. There's no place to stay, really, at these places, and there's nothing sort of far places. And you look at it and you say, this is really impoverished. I mean, there's maybe the school where the principal lives, and maybe there's like a wash tower, that's the only place with running water. So they all still, I mean, 20 years ago, and probably to this day, because I haven't been out there,
What about the church?
church wouldn't have plumbing. It was in honey buckets is what they have, in the houses. I've stayed, there was another village in Wixit. It's nicknamed No Exit. No Exit. I spent a week in No Exit and stayed at a teacher's place, and you're just at the honey bucket is what you're doing. This was in the mid-90s by then, so that's it's 20 years ago.
That means no shower too.
No, you shower at the school or at the washateria is what you do. Yeah. Yeah. So that's so the kids have never seen a fiddle, so I wrote that poem, and I'd go back, and the kids may not test well. They didn't test well, but the kids, they're smart. They're smart like kids here, like smart like kids in Syracuse and Rochester and everywhere else. I go, kids are smart. So I'd say, what do you remember from my last trip? And you know what they'd say? They'd say, I remember you never shaved. Or they even had a better answer, which I learned what teachers didn't know. They'd say, oh yeah, he's back, Chan. That's what I have to think, is that teachers didn't know. They don't know who Cheech and Chong are. I said, they know Cheech and Chong. And anybody who has a beard and glasses, who's not Eskimo, is Chong. He's back, Chong. So these fourth graders, he's back, Chong. It's like, and it's a big, it's a surprising drug culture all the way out at the end of the world. But there was that. Or the kids would say, I know you. You're the poetry guy. I still got my bookmark and cards, which I give. There's some free bookmarks and cards over there. Or the kids might say, I know you. You're the fiddle guy. Play the cat song. And I'll play the cat song. I play out there, and I'll even do a cat poem for you. That I have to do my other fiddle. I know I have two fiddles, by the way. Here's a little bit of a lesson for you. Is test your ears too. This is the same. Not the same. So I can play, when I'm playing certain keys, I can play something that really makes it sound older and more archaic. This is, so if a violinist, your best, Thousand Island violinist, pick this thing up, you would see his or her brow furrow like, it's not tuned right, but it's tuned to play certain kinds of things. This is more standard tuning. So
You can do that.
I'll play the
with
cat
guitar,
song.
too.
What's that?
You can do that with the guitar too.
You can, yes, yes. So classical guitarists would go, what have they done? So I'll play this, do the cat poem, and then I'll play couple again, probably get that. So you'll hear why kids would remember this. And there's not many cats out there. Dogs have a reason of being. They can be a work animal. They can pull sleds. A cat, I remember somebody saying, yeah, there's a teacher who had one 3 or 4 years ago, but it died. Not the teacher, the cat. The moon, the trees, the clouds, the worlds of brews as you creep going ledge to ledge. One fabulous death left to fritter, your purr knows gravel, your meow, a memory of strawberry. For the first time you find yourself musing about muskrat, rabbit, the meaning of mouse. Lucid, vulnerable, shy, you edge to your ninth. That's just a philosophic cat poem. So I'll play, before I go to Cluckle Hill, I'll share one more gnome poem from the Gnome Poems book. Since someday, if I'm back here, I'll write a DePauwville poem for you. Or if I'm at one of the schools around here, I write poems for schools I go to. I write these acrostic poems. But this one is, you can see the difference between here from this part of Jefferson County and Nome. I'm going to find the poem here. It's called An Evening of Local Poetry, sponsored by the Nome Arts Council. It is in here somewhere. Here it is. So I see there's a little bit of food here, so you'll see the difference between here and Nome. Like a spread of reindeer, moose, king crab, smoked salmon, whale meat we dip in seal oil. Eskimo food which we wash with cold duck, Budweiser, a bottle or two of schnapps. Nothing special here. We speak of snow, wind, the nature of drift. We eat and drink as simply. I read that. I think you all know about snow, wind, and the nature of drift. You would be a gnome. A gnome is, once again, it's like big wind, cold, snow. You know, you would probably say, oh yeah, we know this. So, and it is further north, so it's a lot darker. And Nome's a tough place. It's an interesting place. So I'm going to play the Cluck Old Hen again. And while I'm playing it, because we're about the end, if anybody has any questions about Alaska, about writing and the poetry, or anything else about me or about the music, feel free to raise your hand, because I know Karen's there by my book, around them. It's not by. You all can buy it if you want. She's in proximity to the books. I have it for sale. Looks like there's some snacks and some water. So there's not the cold duck Budweiser powder.
Oh, well, fair.
But no meat here, I don't think. But I'll play this Cluck Old Hen again, and I have a long story that I'm not going to do here tonight with this. And if you have any questions, I might have one thing I might share. Oh, you have a question already? Yeah.
Is Darwin still in Anchorage?
Yes.
Is Darwin still alive?
Darwin's still alive. I think you're talking about that bar there, Darwin's
Yeah,
here.
Darwin's
so I don't
bar.
know if that,
He used to send out newsletters all over the United States.
So I don't know about that part, because I only walked in there a few times. I remember being there when when you could still, and maybe you still can there. I know certain places there's food you can't smoke now. I mean, Northern New York you can't smoke indoors with that, but that used to be a smoky place. So, I used to be able to deal with the smoke, but then I got older and I go, I can't deal with this. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean by Darwin. I said, yeah, I know that place. So any questions? Or I mean, you all come to this library regularly. Is this anybody's first time here ever? First time to this library? Wow.
We're not
I'm surprised. What's that?
We're not all from DePauwville.
Okay.
I want to buy the backdrop.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
All here year round, or some of you seasonal?
Yeah, Florida.
You're all here year round?
No.
Okay.
Visiting my mother.
Okay. Wow.
Wisconsin half a year.
Oh, this is all good. This is good information, isn't it? Karen's the director here, so she's the one who brought me Canada. Canada? I almost had somebody come from Ottawa who I met. I have a second home around Lafayette, Louisiana. Anybody spend time down there? It's where the Cajun and Zydeco music is like at. I go out dancing a lot down there. And I'm like, first 2 hours into the leaving Lafayette, I stopped in New Orleans. I knew a band that was playing dance hall and met somebody who asked me if I was from there. And I said, no, 2 hours away. Are you from there? She said, no, I'm from Ottawa. And then her friend, who was from Ottawa, had a music, is on the radio, so actually I gave her one of the CDs, and she played it on the radio, on one of the public station in Ottawa, and she was going to come down, but she couldn't get off work. So it was kind of special with that. That's good. I got one more little piece before I finish this up here. Before I finish, I should mention, I didn't even get to this, so I can do a whole show. I survived a plane crash about 18 years ago, so I'll do one short plane crash poem. And it's a good small town plane crash poem. It's called Gnome Celebrity. 2 years writing, teaching, fiddling, sharing all I could. I was known in Nome maybe as one of the crazies who rode a bike winter long. Then I walked on a plane crash. Old timers I didn't think knew me now greet me by name. I saw how others watched and whispered. I let drunks touch me for luck. And my old hen's a good old hen. She lays eggs for the Pawville man. Sometimes one and sometimes two and sometimes enough for the whole on crew. My old hen, she clucks a lot. Next time she clucks, she'll cluck in the pot. Before I finish, thank Karen Lego and everybody, with her bosses and bosses that just let her have this job so she could have me come here. So there's library, and there's organization Poets and Writers in New York that they had the financial support. And if you know people in Tioga County, I'm going to be at Senior Center tomorrow. I'm doing a kids show. I'm doing what I did here on Tuesday. Then next Thursday, I'm in Cortland County in Homer doing something like this. I'm doing a little house concert in Binghamton, New York Friday, and then I'm kind of, in November, I'm going to be back in New York, it looks like. So maybe see how that all goes. And thank you for coming.